Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. This week has been a week of progress, that's for sure. Pixel Month has come to an end, but that was always going to happen regardless. What wasn't necessarily a guarantee, one way or the other, was all of the other stuff, the non-YouTube things that I ended up doing this week. For starters, there's not really much to tell about this one. I actually applied for a DBS background check finally, because the issue I've had in the past with those is that for some reason I couldn't get the lighting thing to working to verify my photo ID. But yeah, basically, if people don't know, a DBS background check, it's like the disclosure barring service or something like that. I can't remember what it's actually named. But it's essentially a legal document that you need to get, like, over here. Or, I guess, the name of the document, because it's done in most places. You know, where it comes to, like, potentially, well, it's working in a lot of places, actually, but particularly with minors. But, yeah. This was why I didn't file that last year during the apparent, demonetization or whatever. But either way, for some reason, the verification worked this time. I was able to send it off, you know, pay the fee and all that good stuff. And I received the letter this week. Technically, they're saying they issued it 3 days before the letter arrived, but that is obviously what happens anyway. The fun fact is that they said, oh, you know, we'll send, well, if you applied for a paper certificate, we'll send that separately in the post. And of course it came exactly on the same day, so it's got 2 letters instead of 1. Really not much to report on that one. But yeah, so besides that, the main thing that happened this week was that I took a driver's theory test. And me oh my, is that a story to tell. So, what happens, well, particularly over here, is that they'll have you take a theory test. I'm not sure if it's the case everywhere, but the driving, to get a driving license, you'll have a practical test, as is, you know, has been the case since the dawn of automobiles themselves. And nowadays, there's also a theory test. So, I have also been studying for that in between stuff like, you know, the Maddie video, and you know, other upcoming projects too, actually. So that's been a thing for quite some time, alongside the practical driving lessons that I do on most days. So yeah, this what that meant was that, yeah, so eventually we managed to book a theory test that happened to be at 10 in the morning, and it was at a center that was all the way, honestly, near where you know my maternal family live. You know, where I used to go to my nan's house. Yeah, they live over there. It's not the same town. It's 1 or 2 over, but it's close, which is important for what happens later. So, you know, we plan to, you know, head there in good time. We're supposed to be there. They're said to arrive 15 minutes before the actual test, or whenever our scheduled to have the test, because they have tests all day. And yeah, they said that, and so we left fairly early. And while we were away, there was the usual couple of road diversions. We ended up going down a very narrow road with no passing places, which meant that we had to reverse twice to let other vehicles go through. And that was a very long track. And but if that wasn't a sign of things to come, almost immediately after we left that particular area, one of the lights comes on inside the car, and it turns out there's a system failure. So, apparently it was to do with stop and start or something like that. The stop and start feature of the car, which, considering that we were currently moving the car, was not a good sign either. So I didn't see it said stop and start. I only saw system failure because I was on the passenger seat, so I didn't see everything. But yeah, big bright lights that said system failure, so it was pretty clear what was happening. Or at least there's something was happening, not necessarily what it was. You know what I mean? So, because of that, what you're supposed to do in that situation is, stop as soon as it's safe, which actually wasn't for some time because we were still on roads where there's no clear stopping area. And abandon the vehicle and go. Or, I tried to get it serviced as soon as possible. So, while that was happening, my mum tells me to call my dad and get the AA details, which is Automobile Association, not Alcoholics Anonymous, in case anyone is concerned about that. And that she would call him as soon as possible. As for me, on the other hand, because we were still halfway there, it was almost like we wouldn't be able to reach there in time if we had to do an emergency stop somewhere unfamiliar. So isn't it just a relief that we just so happen to have family 1 or 2 towns over? That's why I brought it up earlier, epic foreshadowing. So we end up, I also called my aunt. My mum explained on speakerphone what was going on, and we left to we pulled to her house, and then I immediately left. I'm not sure what happened during the interim, because by the time that I got back from the test way later, my mum had already left, and so I assumed either the car was okay at that point, or someone had come to collect her, or whatever had happened. But yeah, before we get to that point, the story continues, and what happened was, as soon as we got there, and I immediately, because we were already running later than we were supposed to. We were still slightly early, but again, there was no guarantee we'd get there before 9:45. So I immediately get in to the car. We said, be there waiting with the engine on, and she was. And I immediately got in, and then she gets out, and I'm like, where are you going? You're supposed, it doesn't matter if the engine's on if there's no one to drive the vehicle. So that was confusing. So she went and, I guess, talked to my mum about something, which again, I don't know what more information she needed, but she apparently needed it. And then, but then afterwards, she did come back, and yeah, there were no further delays or problems, apart from I guess, she asked me, oh yeah, where's the sender? Where am I supposed to be going? Like, I sent you the directions, but then I put the sat nav on and it was fine. Then the only issue that happened was that instead of turning right towards the end, she turned left and went in a car park and did a loop around. So by that point, I was like, okay, I need to exit the vehicle immediately. The place is somewhere on this street. It's not immediately obvious because Google Images took a photo. Well, it was had a photo on it from the street onwards. So it could have been on several buildings on either side. So once I got out, there's 2 minutes left. I put up Google Images desperately. It was like spinning my head around very quickly to try and figure out what on earth is going on. And yeah, I saw it on the dot, and then just immediately zoomed through and like barged in, kind of. Not really, you know, I got there, I still had momentum, but I was very careful with the door, don't you worry. But yeah, as soon as I entered, it was just a square room, very vacant actually. There were plenty of waiting chairs, but no one was using them, apart from maybe like one person. And then there was a receptionist in the far corner. And as soon as she saw me, because I was still rushing up at this point, she said to me, "Okay, so what time is your test?" And I said 10 a.m. She didn't even take my name at first. I mean, part of it anyway is that she has to ask for my provisional license, so she was eventually going to get my ID regardless. But yeah, she then handed me this laminated, double-sided piece of paper and said, you know, please read this. This is the code of conduct for the test. At which point I'm starting to worry, only because within the 15 minutes time that we're supposed to be there beforehand, there was no mention of reading a code of conduct upon arrival. If anything, as I found out, the code of conduct itself had a bunch of details that were already available on the website they were supposed to read before booking the test, which made it extra pointless in my view, because you're supposed to have already read those things. It's not like she was like tracking to see how to, you know, if we like skimmed it or something like that. As far as their legal liability goes, they're probably covered, I think. I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds like it. But yeah, so I didn't know if that counted. Turns out it was fine, but yeah, it was that was something on my mind. It's like, okay, well, I need to process this. If they tell me that I'm late, I can just say, well, you're the one who handed me the piece of paper. You should have told me. My goodness, there's a lot of stuff coming. Okay, there we go. I'm definitely more hyper aware of emerging vehicles now than I used to be. For obvious reasons. But yeah. There's what was I going to say? Yes, I got to the point after I finished reading. Then I went back and she was supposed to take my license at that point. But the thing is, she was on the phone. And it turned out she was calling between two separate branches because of something to do with auditors and inspectors and such. It's just that you know, I know she'd be there with me in a minute. You know, to which I said, you know, that's fine. It sounds like something's going on. And then she continued. By this point, I switched off my phone, so I'm not sure exactly what time this all happened. But it was somewhere like, you know, in the in-between time. So after that, you know, after a few more minutes of her on the phone, then, you know, I rush up again, give my provisional. Then, you know, she gives me a key to put all of my stuff in, you know, anything in my pockets or whatever. Apparently, this hoodie is fine because it's not a jacket, it's a jumper, which I guess is either legally distinct for them or they have, or it's their call. Didn't say that on the piece of paper, but you know, it just said no jackets. So yeah, whatever they considered. I still had to show my pockets afterwards, actually, which was interesting because there was another inspection towards, like, you know, in the other corner. You know, we went into a different room at that point, and there was a few people who were actually waiting there. There's only 3 chairs in this waiting room, but they were processing a lot of people and they were taking the test, which says to me, yeah, maybe they, because I only ever checked and I had like 1 slot available, so maybe I just missed out on the fact that I was the only person who was scheduled for exactly 10. because I haven't, to my recollection, taken a proper exam since A level, which even if it was done online, was always you know at a scheduled time, because it was usually either during a lesson time slot or you know in an exam hall with invigilators and such. So I was kind of surprised about that. But yeah, I guess that was their method, because it was all done electronically. But yeah, that's when it clicked, and not necessarily when they, you know, gave me the code of conduct or anything. So that happened. But yeah, so I had like a few seconds of conversation with one of the girls who was sitting next to me at the time. And then afterwards, another guy came and sat down, and I also wished him luck, but then immediately they called me. At which point they did a search. I turned up my pockets and such, which was part of the code. You know, I knew they were going to do that, making sure that you don't cheat. Rolled up my sleeves to make sure I didn't have a watch, and, you know, all of that fun stuff. They also mentioned that they were going to use metal detectors at some point. Although I guess maybe they said that they had the right to if they thought you were cheating, but... because that never actually happened. They just, they didn't even like do, it's not like, you know, TSA or anything. They didn't do like any frisking or whatever. It was just a case of, you know, show us that everything is empty and then go in. The only thing we do not want empty is your mind, full of the correct answers. So, yeah, everything was fine there, obviously, because by that point I'd already used the locker. And then they asked me for my provisional again, which kind of also got me confused, because if they wanted, if they're going to ask my provisional right before I went in to log me on the system, then what was the point of the receptionist before asking for it? But of course, you know, I didn't ask that. I gave them that, and then, you know, left my doubts to myself. and then continued in and did the test. And by far the least interesting part of the story of how I got to the test was me doing the test, because yeah, it was completely normal, or completely what I expected. Apart from the fact that you could flag answers for review, which I wasn't aware you could do, which wasn't a thing in the practice app that I've been using. And also in the practice app, there is a section that they do where it's hazard awareness. So you're supposed to click on the screen if you as soon as you detect a certain hazard that is emerging, and the quicker you do it, the faster you respond, the more points you get. And this is all fine, obviously. That's part of what you would do with driving anyway. The problem is that for some reason my phone didn't rotate, so I had to look at the app vertically, and then just like squint it up to my face like this constantly. So needless to say, I was not exactly the most efficient at that in the app practice, which actually meant that the exam was easier, at least in that portion, than it was during the practice, which I suppose is, you know, I think that's a good thing. You know, we've all been through, I guess, mock exams of things, and then the real thing ends up being much more challenging than you anticipated. The year that I took my English GCSE, and you're supposed to find 4 powerful phrases within a certain paragraph, the paragraph in question was only 2 sentences long. So this says to me that they made a mistake, or they were really trying to push for this was like the best paragraph of all time, which, spoilers, it wasn't. So yeah. But you know, that happens all the time. Also, the biology paper that I did, there was a question to do with like testing mice or something like that I forgot that everyone really found annoying. Yeah, so it happens. But yeah, then afterwards, I waited for a bit longer. Then, you know, they gave me the test. Apparently during the times in the test, my aunt tried to come in up to the waiting room, but they shooed her out. So she was waiting outside by the time I finished. But yeah, so I went back to the original receptionist, and then she gave me the papers, and I passed. Yeah, I needed a score of 43 out of 50 in the multiple choice section. I achieved a score of 43 out of 50 in the multiple choice section. And in the, I think I also needed like 40 something in the hazard awareness one. I got 61 out of like 70, I think. Which means that, again, it was much easier, and the app was definitely holding me back, or at least my phone was. I'm sure the feature works for other people. So yeah, theory test done. And now I just have to try to scavenge and check every single day until a cancellation for a practical test comes up, so that they can be reviewed, and that I can take that, because otherwise everything will be is full all the time, in like every test center. And the problem is that there's an app for that, and then even in the app that you have to put your postcode in, so it searches by your postcode and not like by availability. You think people would be more interested in that these days, rather than, oh yeah, here's the nearest test center to use. Like, I don't care what it is test center to me is, just give me something. Not only that, but you have to specify a date as well, rather than just making all the dates actually available to you. So it's a very annoying system, actually. But, you know, there's the next step. And the next step is also, again, to go back to the practical, which is what I'm going to end up doing once I've returned this time, because it's supposed to rain later, and so I did Walking Wednesday first. So yeah, the fun begins now, clearly. But either way, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe to us already, and on that note, until next time, farewell.